It's happening again, as we've seen multiple reporters talking about the Kevin Durant contract extension, and we got some massive updates on that front and where Kevin Durant kind of stands with this team and the Suns, with Suns fans knowing that he wants to stay. Also, the Suns made a move waiving center Frank Kaminsky, so the Suns have fully cut down their roster to those 14 standard guys with their 3 2-ways. Why did they make this move? We're going to dive into all of that and more on this episode of Suns Digest. I'm Bruce Veliz. Thank you guys so much for showing your support throughout the offseason. CJ and I really, really appreciate it. We've almost hit 2,000 subscribers in under a year, and we're very, very thankful of you guys for showing your support, hitting that like, hitting that subscribe button. So if you guys want to make sure you stay updated on everything revolving around this team leading up to the season, it's just a week, less than a week away. Keep hitting that like button to stay in that Suns algorithm. Without further ado, though, let's dive into the topic at hand and let's get into the news. First, we're going to discuss the waiving of the final Exhibit 10 deal as it happened right before the deadline at 5 o'clock. If you guys did not know, there is a deadline for Exhibit 10 and Exhibit 9 deals to kind of convert players before the season starts. You got to be able to submit a roster to the NBA before the season does kick off underway. So we've seen some multiple transactions from a numerous amount of teams, and the Suns had one more decision to make after waiving Mami Diake and Moses Wood, their previous two Exhibit 10-day deals, and that was a contract in Frank Kaminsky. And he was someone we talked about, someone to kind of keep an eye on with the Yusuf Nurkic injury. But after the emergence of Yusuf Nurkic in that final preseason game, and him looking kind of solid, the Suns ultimately went out and made a decision here. And courtesy of Dwayne Rankin, he was being told that the Phoenix Suns aren't keeping Frank Kaminsky as he will be waived. He just got a training camp invite, and the Suns now have a roster spot open on their 15th man standard roster. They must turn that roster to the league right before the NBA opens its season on October 22nd, where we will see the Celtics and Knicks kick off their debut. But let's kind of look at this, like I mentioned, and like I kind of said, from looking at the salary cap here from this team. Ignore, obviously, Frank Kaminsky being on this list. Obviously, he is not on the team. But as you guys can see, obviously, the 14 standard contracts have been signed in the 3 2-ways down there. Bridges, Gillespie, and Washington Jr. are all still on the team here. So the Suns still will have both will still have their 2 ways. They still have their regular contracts, but Frank's time in Phoenix is done. And that's kind of unfortunate for Frank and Suns fans because we all love Frank. You know what I mean? He obviously was on the championship running team in 2021. A lot of Suns fans were kind of hoping maybe he'd get that final roster spot, be able to keep that just because we've kind of seen some issues with that center group in the preseason with Nurkic being out. But ultimately, the Suns have decided they'd rather keep that roster spot open, not lock it up long term with a player in Frank Kaminsky paying some taxes with being a second April team to even get him on a deal on a veteran minimum contract. They'd be still paying more money in taxes. Matt Ishbia that fans wouldn't even know about would be paying out. But unfortunately, that is not going to be the case. Now, the Suns now do have some ample flexibility going into the season. Like I said, they do have 14 guys under roster. And even though they are a second apron team, and they obviously can't send out 2 players for 1 in return, they can receive 2 players for 1 in return. So if we want to look back at the salary cap here and kind of gauging at that, we could possibly think of some players that could maybe be on the move once the trade deadline hits to kind of fill in some holes if this roster has them. Maybe a player in Grayson Allen who is extension eligible around the trade deadline. Maybe a player in Josh Okogie who will also be extension eligible if his role is taken over by Ryan Dunn. His contract could provide a tradable asset. Maybe a player in Yusuf Nurkic if it's not working out at the center position, or Royce O'Neal if they already feel like they have enough 3-and-D wings. Like I said, ultimately, we don't know what is going to happen, and the Suns could ultimately use that roster spot on a buyout option as well. The options are really limitless here for the Suns kind of going into the season, but let's be frank here. I would be sorry, I'm talking about Frank Kaminsky saying that, but I would not be shocked if the Suns I would be shocked if the Suns don't finish the roster out with 15 guys. So I would expect some moves to happen throughout the season. Like we said, we know the Suns team wants to win and they want to compete. So if things aren't looking good at any point in the season, I'm sure they'll be willing to move some pieces, make some moves. They got some young new faces that have looked pretty solid. They have some good veterans, and I do expect Matt Ishbia and James Jones will be doing their best work. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section with this Frank Kaminsky waiving, and how do you guys ultimately feel about this deal. Ultimately, I personally am a little bit upset that Frank is going to get waived, but I like having that last roster spot open. Yusuf Nurkic looked pretty solid. Also, Ogadaro and Mason Plumlee look like they can contribute on either side of the ball. Mason more defensively, also more offensively. So maybe teetering with that backup center position kind of on matchup is something that can excel with the Suns as long as Nurk can stay healthy. Let's get into the meat and bones of the video, talking about the KD news on this extension here, ladies and gentlemen, because it's been a news and topic of discussion all throughout the offseason. As you guys know, we've talked about it on this channel before throughout the summer months, kind of breaking down some trades and basically saying this is nonsense and this is just jokes. That fans are just kind of, media outlets are just grasping that the Suns are going to want to blow it up, and they're not going to, and they're going to keep this roster the same. And they did that, and they vowed to say that obviously last year they dealt with some injuries, maybe thought that the coaching wasn't the best fit, and now they feel more confident with this roster. And I truly believe that this roster is going to perform and it is going to show out. And a lot of Suns fans, including myself, also believe that, but many fans around the NBA don't, and that's what they fear, because they think Kevin Durant is possibly not going to want to extend with this team, or possibly even want to ask out. So we're going to dive in and look at those reports. We saw one a couple days ago on NBA on ESPN where Shams Charania had the latest on Kevin Durant's contract extension with the Phoenix Suns, basically saying that the Suns are, in works with Durant trying to get something done, but Durant isn't in the rush in the process of getting an extension done at this very moment. And we have some furthermore to back that up from AZ Sports Zone on Twitter. Does some fantastic work covering a lot of the Arizona sports teams, and they obviously said that this is a snippet from the clip, saying they've been focused on getting a deal done in the 2-year range, where Kevin Durant has expressed publicly and privately how much he loves Phoenix. And he also specified the two options that Durant and the Suns have. Option 1 is agreeing to a 1-year extension with the Phoenix Suns for $59.5 million for the 26 and 27 season, or option 2 is to wait until next summer to sign a 2-year extension for $123.8 million. So Durant getting a little bit more in that second year for signing that 2-year extension. And like we said, feels comfortable in Phoenix and wants to get a deal done. And Phoenix wants to get a deal done in that 2-year range. So ultimately, what will happen? How will it get done? I personally think that the Suns and Kevin Durant are going to stay. Like we said, his Suns team is looking good through the preseason. They finished 3-2, and even though they lost in overtime versus the Lakers, we obviously noticed that Nurkic was just kind of getting some test and run, only playing 17 minutes, and he looked very, very dominating. And I think that this Suns team as a whole is going to be dominant enough to where obviously Durant is going to obviously ask out this season. Ishbia has made it known, James Jones has made it known that Durant will not be gone this year. This extension obviously is going to further keep Durant on this team extended for further years. So why Durant would not want to extend more money locked up long term, so that even if he did want to trade in a couple seasons, that he could be able to get it done at a better deal. That's what I'm saying. I feel like Durant is going to want to take that 2-year deal. I don't think he's going to want to take that 1-year extension with this Suns team. Ultimately, I think that if it gets to that case, he would ask out for a trade, and I don't think that's going to happen, obviously, until next season. The Suns, obviously, I think this year are going to keep their big three intact regardless of what happens, and I think they're going to run with it. And then next year is ultimately when the question mark does arise. Do we chance it? Do we blow it up? Is this team really going to work? I think those questions and those discussions are dealt for next offseason and the season after that. But ultimately, this season, with the Suns kind of having some high hopes and from the preseason giving us some good production, I only expect the Suns to be good. KD to not worry about this and have no worries. At Media Day, Kevin Durant said it's not much of an issue and that he wants to work on it when it gets closer and when it needs to get done. So he's not looking towards it out like in the back of his mind, which is good. And that means he's just focused on winning basketball and giving a championships. It's franchise first Larry O'Brien trophy to the Phoenix Suns, being that leading player. And I think that it could be possible with this Suns team. Like we said, they made those additions in the assist to turnover group, bringing in some point guards. They already have seen their emergence in their rookies. And ultimately, I think once the season kind of gets off to a start, we might see a hole or two with this Suns squad. But like I said, they have the roster, they have the pieces to be able to move, to bring in 1 or 2 pieces in to kind of fill in those holes. And ultimately, once that kind of happens, I think after the deadline, this Suns team will set them up to be a championship contender, and ultimately will be up to the players and the coaching staff to get it done. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. How do you guys feel about the news about Frank Kaminsky? How do you guys feel about the Kevin Durant news on the extension? Like I said, I ultimately think he'll stay in Phoenix. I think he'll get that 2-year extension done, and I think it will be done going into next season. But let me know your thoughts. How do you guys feel? Like I said, you guys have been absolutely fantastic showing your love and support over on the channel. CJ and I have been really, really appreciative of all the support last season, the off season, and now leading up to this season. You guys have been absolutely fantastic. fantastic, and we can't wait to give you more content throughout the entire year. So if you want to get that content and stay up to date, make sure to hit the like and sub button on Suns Digest. It's really, really appreciated. And once again, I'm Bruce Velez. Have a great rest of your night, and go Phoenix Suns.